We need to think more about how much we think about things, if that makes sense. I feel like too often we are so zoomed in with this bigger picture so close to our face that we can't even make sense of what we're really trying to do in life and what we're really trying to achieve and where we're really trying to go. And I don't think it gets us anywhere good. So I just wanted to talk about the levels of thinking today and how much time we should really be spending on these different levels of thinking. And I think we spend far too much time on that low level zoomed in thinking as opposed to that bigger picture zoomed out thinking. Now, I think it is beneficial to spend more time on that zoomed in thinking, because ultimately those are the finer details, the finer decisions, like the prioritization of your day-to-day tasks, the actual execution of these tasks. That's the low level zoomed in thinking. And then the bigger picture thinking is thinking about whether this task actually fits into your greater framework of where you want to be in life and what you want to achieve. And obviously it wouldn't be any good to spend a whole lot of time only thinking about where we want to be, because that's just dreaming and that's just fantasizing eventually, if it doesn't ever result in action or this low level zoomed in action that we actually use to move somewhere. So we have to map out our route in front of us, and that's the big picture thinking. And then when it comes down to it, we can't just keep looking at the map. We actually have to take a step forward, and that's the zoomed in thinking. That's the tasks, the everyday tasks. So if someone often says to you that you need to prioritize more effectively, you may think something like, or you may immediately go off and look at your to-do list for today or for whatever day, and then you think to yourself, this task needs to be done first, then this task, without ever actually giving any consideration to whether the task even belongs on the to-do list in the first place. So I think we all need to spend a little bit of time taking a step back and considering what we really want from this life and what we really want to achieve in the middle distance, far distance, middle to short term even, and spend a little bit more time on these bigger picture ideas as opposed to our zoomed in chipping away crafting at the sculpture, and then eventually when we take a step back to look at it, it looks awful. So we got to actually take steps back more often to reflect, to redirect, to recalibrate, to assess our situation and make better decisions. Now, I'm not saying you should spend most of your time in this big picture thinking. Like I said earlier, then it just becomes fantasizing. I still think that majority of your time should be spent chipping away at the sculpture and building the life that you want to build, the actual building part of it. But I don't think that exclusively, or that even to the amount that we're doing it, is beneficial. So in other words, the bigger picture thinking, we should spend more time on it in general, and we should spend more time on it compared to any given aspect that we zoom in on, but the total time spent on all the zoomed in aspects should exceed the time spent on the bigger picture thinking, so that we can actually create this bigger picture in the long term. I think a useful trick for this is to think of yourself 10 years down the line and think, if I were 10 years down the line, what would be the things that I would thank myself for doing now? What would be the main things? And you might say something like taking care of your health, or spending more time with your family members, your relationships, these types of things. Or you might say, I wish I had have just started that side hustle or this side gig business. I wish I had have given more time into my passions. I wish I had have done this. You'll never look back 10 years from now and say, damn, I wish I had have done that last question in my homework. Maybe you would, maybe that caused you to fail your test or whatever, but it's probably not going to happen. You're probably not going to be looking back and wishing you did any of these individual specific tasks, even though they do build up to this greater picture that we're trying to create. in 10 years time, looking back now, it's just really not going to be the things we wished we'd focused on. So give that some thought and think where you really want to be in 10 years and decide whether your current track is going to lead you there or not. And then also be brave. If you're not on the right track, be brave in cutting things off, and being ruthless about what you really want and going out and seeking that. Nothing's going to land in your lap. Nothing's going to fall into place for you in 10 years down the line unless you map this route out so that you're there where you want to be. You're never going to be there. No one's going to pick you up along the way and drop you off where you want to be. You have to get there yourself. Now, I think another thing I want to speak about with this big picture thinking, just in case I've created any like misconceptions, is that at least in my mind, there's two types of things that we like spend our time on. There's the maintenance activities, and then there's the building activities. And this is another thing. I think we should spend more time on this building activities, but in our building, make sure we aren't sculpting a shitty looking sculpture, or make sure we aren't building something, an appendage that's not necessarily beneficial or in alignment with our long-term goals. So in our building, be more intentional and directed, and be more creative and crafty with it, and spend more time on it, more time thinking about it, and more time executing. But obviously I'm not saying now you have to go think about this bigger picture and then off you go, and you're going to end up thinking about where you should be 10 years down the line, and then you fall into that romanticizing, fantasizing, dreaming trap, or you even end up going down the wrong route, and then you end up only building, and then you neglect other things in your life. That's not what I'm saying. Other things are important, these day-to-day things, maintenance things that also need to be taken care of. Yeah, so let me know what you think of this. I just thought it was interesting and wanted to share it. And I think it's a good reminder to make sure that we're actually spending time on things that matter to us. And I think it's a good idea every now and then to take a step back and consider whether the things that we're doing in the grand scheme of things really matter to us. And 10 years down the line, whether what we've done, we're going to thank ourselves for it or not.